Morning guys and girls. Today I'm doing a video on plug welding with a MIG. It's got to be used quite a bit in the restoration business. Pull a panel off a car and you've got to put it back on the car, and you've got the edges where the holes are drilled and you want to attach it back to the, say, putting quarter panel back on, or a rail underneath in the floor section. And you'd use a plug weld like this. So first of all, you're going to go through and on your edges you're going to have the holes. On outer body panels I use 1/4 inch holes, which is a bit over 6 mil, and on the big rails and underneath the floor and chassis members I use the 9/32, which is 7 mil. These ones I've drilled in the middle, they're just big ones, so I can give you an example of how to actually do this weld with the MIG on a bigger scale, so that you can see what's actually happening. On these smaller holes it's very difficult to tell where the wire feed's going in and how we're attaching both the bits of metal together. You've got to make sure that when you weld the two pieces together that they are a very tight fit. You have to make sure that you can see the bottom metal through the hole, as tight a fit as possible on the top section. With a MIG, because the MIG weld sits on top, it's a high build weld, you can make the mistake of actually filling the hole but not joining the panels together. Anyway, we're going to go through that today, and that's why I've done the bigger holes in the centre, to try and show you how you achieve that on the smaller diameter hole. These are exaggerated again, just so that I can show you where you start with the wire and where you finish with it, and a few other bits and pieces, tips and tricks about how to make it work properly. So you'll punch the holes. You know, a lot of people see these are like the hole punch handheld units. They come with the different size dies in them, and they're quite good. They work well. They take a lot of energy to make them pop the metal out, but anyway, they do a nice neat job. The other alternative is a step drill. That's a step drill. I use these a lot. They're very convenient. The thing though is, when you do use a step drill, you've got to make sure, or any drill for that matter, to get a smaller drill hole, you've got to make sure you don't have these dags on the other side. You see the dags? Okay, it's exaggerated because it's a big hole, but I wanted to have it exaggerated so you can see in the camera what I'm talking about. If you've got those dags on the other side, even the slightest one will keep this metal away from the metal that you're welding to, and that's when you start getting problems. You'll actually fill the hole, you'll make the weld happen, and it'll look good from the outside, but it's not necessarily attached. Right, so we clean these up. You've got to take the back off them. Just use a file or a sander, whatever's handy at the moment. So you want all those burrs gone so that it's smooth, so that when you place it on the other piece of metal, you can see the metal clearly on the back, that it's actually touching through the hole. Okay. MIG weld setup for plug welds. I've just done a couple of examples here on the smaller piece of metal, and they're using the small holes. So the first ones that you see there, that one there is the first attempt with the weld before the adjustment was made to make the weld sit flat like this one. So you'll adjust your voltage and your wire feed, do a test panel like this until the MIG weld sits flat. That way there's a lot less work in sanding off the panel and making sure it is nice when it's finished, which is what you want to achieve. This is too high a build. If you keep going with that, you end up with a big clump, and it is an attractive way to do it sometimes, but just depending on whether you're doing a rat rod or what it is. You can have a high build so it looks like a rivet, but ordinarily you want it flat. You want a nice flat even weld so that you can sand it off nicely, and there's no real big deal in actually sanding it back. You're not spending 2 hours or 4 hours just sanding back your welds. So to achieve that on a 7mm hole, my MIG settings are, just let me have a look. We've got 4 meters of wire feed per minute at 17 volts. 4 meters of wire feed at 17 volts. That's using 0.8 wire. Okay, so that's that section. So I've cleaned this up a little bit. Make it nice and tidy. The other thing to remember is that your panels need to be as clean as. If you have any paint, you want to get rid of it. If you have any sort of discoloration, you want to get rid of it. You don't want any corrosion when you're welding. Your metal needs to be clean. It's paramount. All right, let's clamp this one together and we'll see how we go. Try my best so that you can actually see what's going on here with these welds. So you can see through the big holes there that the plate is very much on the base of the plate that you're trying to weld. They've got such a close joint, it's not funny. And the best way to do these is when you weld, is you weld in progress. So you'll start on this weld, get it to join nicely. Then as you weld that one, it'll shrink a little bit and it'll actually help to pull this one closer together, but you move your clamp as you go. You've always got to make sure that they're close together. So I'm going to start this one and I'm going to weld it first of all, just to show you where you would start on the inside of this hole, how you actually get the bottom to join the top. MIG gun, 0.8 wire. Make sure your nozzle's nice and clean inside. You want to make sure there's no spatter or much around the gas, so there's plenty of gas coming out. It needs to be nice and clean. You get a build-up of that, especially when you're doing a lot of welding on a resto, and you need to make sure it's clean out of the gun all the time. Okay, so I'm going to just do the start of what the spot weld in the plug hole is going to look like for you, but because we're on a bigger size, hopefully it shows you more accurately what's going on. I don't have any fancy camera guys to go zoom in and take videos of arc welding, but let's just see how this goes, see if we can make it happen for you. So that weld setting's quite nice, it's laying down beautiful. You want your weld to start in the bottom, on the bottom plate. And you want to join the edge just on one edge of the hole. You don't want to be in the center to start off with, because more often than not you can actually fill the hole before it actually starts welding properly to the base and getting good penetration. So I always start on the edge, and when you're in the continuation of the weld, you can actually make it flow in a circle and slowly fill the hole like a coil into the center, and that gives you good penetration, and that'll make the weld join how it's supposed to join. So many times you'll do a small spot weld like that because you don't want them to be much bigger anyway. Normally you've only got a 10mm edge to work on. You don't want to be just filling the hole and not actually welding it to the back panel or to the other piece of metal. Alright, I'll go ahead and fill that one in, and you'll see how nice and flat it sits. I'll just do the next stage of it so that we can see in each stage of the process of the swirl with the MIG that you're making the two metals join together. Hope you can see that okay in the camera. But you'll see I've done a circle around the joint of the plate, and then I've started to bring it in and swirl it up so that it finishes in the centre. And when you've got your welder set right with your volts and your wire feed, the metal flows beautifully. You can just see it pooling and making the weld happen inside the hole and joining the back panel to the front panel. Okay, I'll just finish this off now. Again, remember, these are big ones just to show examples. This is showing what you do on a smaller hole and how you make it happen. Penetration on the back, weld sits nice and flat, and it's a swirl. You do the swirl. Again, big hole, exaggerated so that you can see how you actually make it happen on a small hole. Okay, we'll do the next one along. So that's actually joined nicely there. Use another bit of steel to shove underneath it just to show you that she's well and truly joined. No separation there. So then you move along to your next weld and you clamp beside it. And again, you're making sure that this plate is touching that plate completely all the way around the edge of the hole. Start on the edge first. You're getting your joint to start happening. Run around the edge and make it pull in. Penetration on the back side. Nice flat weld again, and she's joined together. So that's how I like to do them. Now I'll do a couple of the small ones. To show you how nice and neat they can join together. Especially when you've got your weld settings done right. You want it so that it actually is not a high build. You want the weld to disappear into the hole. Alright, we'll do a couple of little ones just to show you the example. So there we have the 1/4 inch holes. You can see how flat they are, nice and easy sanding, and she's well and truly joined. So they're the 6mm, they're 1/4 inch, those ones on the bottom. Straighten the plate out a little bit. Clamp again. I'm lucky with this plate because it's pretty straight, so I don't have to worry about clamping each one as I go. So yeah, with a panel that's a donor panel that might be going back onto the car, you'll have difficulty and you have to actually clamp along with each hole. You can buy the special prong clamps that are pronged like that so that you can weld in between the two prongs. You can get them in the vice grip version. They're like a fork, two pieces that come out the side. Anyway, we'll do the big ones now. These are the 7mm ones. Weld is at the same setting. It's pretty much going to be used for each size. It doesn't really matter. Your main thing is to make sure that there's not too much wire going in, and therefore after that too much work to do because you've got to grind them all off. Alrighty. Ooh, bit of heat in that now. Okay, I hope this is coming up on the camera, but you'll see that they're sitting nice and flat, and she's well and truly joined. Okay. That's pretty much it with the spot welds and the plug. So just to run over it again, you've got your welder settings, which is really important. You want about 10 CFM of gas. We've got it set at 4.5 meters of wire a minute and 17.5 amps. And it lays down nicely. You'll play with your welder, just do a dummy piece and have a play with it, and you'll see how you can actually make it lay flatter as you adjust the welder. Once they join together, they go nicely. So another little trick, once you sand these flat, you can actually make it look like it's been spot welded. I want to use a punch about the same size as a spot weld, so I think it's about 4 or 5 millimeters. I can tell you, 5mm punch, and you just run along in between your welds. Sorry about the noise. She's hot. Once you sand your plug welds off, you have these dimples that look like spot welds. Works good. Right guys, I think that's about all with the plug welding. I hope that's explained it a lot easier when I've done the bigger hole to show you actually how you start on the edge and weld into it. You know, most of the time you try and pull the centre of the hole first with the wire, and a lot of cases it just fills the hole straight away, and you're not getting the penetration that you need to make the weld bite. Alright guys, I hope it helps. Don't forget to subscribe and like. I've got to get used to saying that. Want more people to watch, more people to find out these little secrets. That's my take. Some guys will have a different idea of how to do things, but hopefully that will help you out and get you on your way to plug welding with your MIG. Thanks for watching.